It's time for Recipe of the Day. I am assuming that if you listen to this podcast, you are someone who, like me, loves to cook, and possibly even someone like me who, when you get a little bit of extra time, like a day off on the weekend, trying something new or trying to perfect something is an activity that you find really fun. It is something that I really, really love. And that, like, perfecting something really simple is what brings me the most joy. Like, where you just really get good at doing something basic that you can then apply all over the place. It's like simple perfection. You know what I mean? So today I am telling you about some simple perfection that I have figured out that I want to share with you and that you can try the next time you're making steaks, whether that is for your dinner tonight or for any celebration or just random steak night. And I'm telling you about dry brining steaks. Now, if you've been listening for a while, you know that I've been working on brines quite extensively. We have perfected the chicken breast brine. We did different amounts of time, water temperatures, different salt solutions to get the best brine chicken breast. I found the most flavorful turkey brine. It involves a really interesting technique that I've never seen anybody else use that is just incredible with turkey. And now we're focusing on dry brining. So dry brining is simply salting the outside of the meat, no liquid involved, therefore dry. And the idea behind that is that that salt kind of extracts moisture from the meat, mixes with the salt, and then reabsorbs in. And this is perfect for something like a steak that you're going to grill or cook at a high temperature, because those pieces of beef, the pieces that we reserve for cooking like steaks in that sort of high temperature way, tend to already be very tender. So we're not really needing to add tenderness to them. They're also often juicy as well, right? So we're not trying to add liquid the way that we are when we're like brining chicken breast with that wet brine and having that liquid soak in. Instead, it's actually the case that if you wet brine a beautiful steak, you end up making it maybe a little mushy and diluting some of the robust meaty flavor with water. And we do not want that. So what we do want is the little bit of tenderization action from the salt, but mostly that penetration of the seasoning all the way deep inside. So that is why we are dry brining the steaks and not wet brining them. Okay, so if you want to dry brine, if I've convinced you, what you need to do is get some steaks. Now, I tested this on New York strip steaks that were about 3/4 of an inch thick, just kind of like standard New York strip from the grocery store. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. If your steaks are thicker, you might need to adjust things a little bit. And so basically I compared different times for these steaks. So I was doing about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt per side of the steak. That's just kind of like a light, even seasoning, which is what tends to be recommended. And I will say I did do a side test with a little bit more and a little bit less to see if it made a difference. And yes, a little bit more made it too salty and a little bit less not salty enough. So you're just doing that sort of even seasoning from your hand, which is going to work out to be about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then those steaks went on a rack on a pan uncovered in the fridge for 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, and 16 hours. And then I cooked them and compared them. And the ones that were only done for 2 and 4 hours had a slight mushy texture after they were cooked on the outside. And I think it's because the salt didn't get a chance to fully absorb into the steak. The 8 and 16 hours were very well seasoned and tender, really good crust on them. The dry brine actually kind of dries things out on the outside and makes it easier to get a really, really nice crust. So I really think the 8-hour is the sweet spot for this. Probably if you did 6, it would be fine. So that was the best for timing. I'm going to say I also tested different kinds of salt. In general, what's recommended on all the websites and cookbooks that I've come across that talk about this is to use kosher salt. And I wanted to know if it actually made a difference. So I did a side-by-side test. After I tested with the kosher salt and determined that the 8-hour was the premium way to do it, I did a side-by-side test of one steak done for 8 hours with the kosher salt and one steak done for 8 hours with regular non-iodized table salt. I didn't want the confound of that iodine flavor in there. And what I found was there was no difference. I did the test. I had Marty do a blind taste test, so he didn't know which was which, and we couldn't tell the difference between the two. So what does that mean? You can use whatever kind of salt you've got. And since we're talking about a 1/4 teaspoon per side, the volume is going to be pretty similar no matter what size the crystals are, unless it's like really, really big crystals. Then you might want to use a little bit more just because the volume to sodium ratio isn't the same, right? And I'll just let you know, I'm going to put the link to this dry brine steak post in the show notes for this podcast episode. And there are pictures of all of this. You can actually see the steaks that have the different number of hours of brining time. And then also I did the side by side of the steaks with the two kinds of salt. And then after sort of 4-hour time, what they looked like. And you can see that there's not any difference there. So all those things are in pictures for you to take a look at. And then after they are dry brined, you are going to cook them the same way you normally would. So if you are somebody who likes to take your steak out of the fridge to let it come to room temperature a little bit before cooking it, still do that. If you are somebody who thinks you want to leave it in the fridge until right before cooking, do that. And then if you're grilling it, grill it the same way as normal, in the pan, same way as normal. Everything else is exactly the same. All that is new and different is this, except the one thing that is different is that you would not salt the steak anymore. You don't pat it dry, you don't rinse it off, but you also do not salt it. Just cook it from there as normal. Okay, as I said, I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is June 13th of 2025. The other place you can get the link is in our Facebook group for this podcast. I post the recipe of the day link there every single day, so you can always find what I'm talking about and be inspired about what you can make that day. You can join that group at facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. I look forward to seeing you there. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast recipe of the day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.